We love our mama. We say hooray for our own special mama on her own special day. We love our dad, our old Papa Bear, who does so much for us and is always there. Welcome back to Deep in Bear Country, a Berenstain Bearcast. I am your host, Phil Gonzales, and if things sound a little different, a little echoier maybe, a little like I'm not in my office sitting behind my desk all by myself, it's because I am not in my office. I am not sitting at my desk, and I am not all by myself. This week, I am going to be covering 2 books, which is unusual. I try not to do that because it's usually a little too much information, but we're in a special situation here. These are 2 books I've been putting off covering because I wanted to have guests for them, and I didn't want to have to sit in front of the camera and make them zoom at me because that's not a very good way to talk to these 2 very specific people. So this week's books are 2012's We Love Our Mom and We Love Our Dad by Jan and Mike Berenstain. If you've noticed, I'm jumping way back in time because I've been putting off covering these books for a while. They are Mother's Day and Father's Day books. It is not Mother's Day or Father's Day, but the reason I have put them off and the reason I have waited to be in the same room as these guests is because the guests are, appropriately enough, my own mom and my own dad. Please welcome to the show, Gale and Ruben Gonzales. Welcome to Deep in Bear Country.
Good to be here, Phil.
And now I'm going to stop talking like I talk on the show. I'm just going to talk like a normal human being. You're probably not used to hearing me talk like that.
No.
So you guys have been my parents for how long?
Jesus, 47 years?
Yeah. Say about 47 years. And how much of that would you say was good?
Oh, 47 years?
Aw, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I would reiterate that 47 has been a terrific experience watching you grow up, mature, become a father, and be an excellent dad.
Do you think I'm an excellent dad?
Oh, yes.
Aw, that's nice.
Well, I believe you pay a lot of attention to your children, and the thing that I admire the most, the fact that you make them part of your everyday life, and you experiment with them by giving them knowledge that you have imparted in them, and the things that you've read, you've just passed it along to them. I can't read enough to even comprehend your knowledge based on books.
Well, it's certainly not based on life experience. I was talking with someone just the other day about how, it may have been Brian, I can't remember who, but it was talking about how if you saw a child running around outside, it was Stacy. It was my sister. It was not me running around outside because I was the indoor kid.
Oh,
Yep.
That was the Corbins, because he talked about watching Stacy up and down the sidewalk and the like. Yeah. And that's true, because you usually in the shadows of the house. Yeah, I remember exactly whenever you grew up long enough to help me do the yard work, how it seemed that either you didn't pick up on the process or you intentionally ignored it, knowing that I would correct it or take over the jobs.
Okay, so yard work. Okay, so in Texas, yards are very dense and thick. There's a lot of grass. We have lawns in Minnesota, but they are thin. Like sort of the grass isn't thick. The grass is very thin, and you had a very specific idea of what mowing the lawn was like. You were like, you go in this order, in this direction. And did you do spiral or did you do back and forth?
Well, I alternated in back and forth, sometimes laterally, sometimes vertically.
Yeah. And I was like, why don't you just do a spiral from the outside in? I would just always do that. But we also had a little wisteria bush we had in the front.
Yes.
We had this wisteria bush in the front yard that was just like wasp central. Like it was just wasps. And so I would always make the biggest circuit around the wisteria bush, and Dad would always be like, no, you got to get in there. You got to get up under the bush. And I'm like, but that's getting me closer to the bugs. Also, fire ants. Like, you mow over fire ant hills. You don't want that.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot.
It was an interesting experience, and rearing you as a child and watching you grow. Unfortunately, I spent a lot of time forming my own future. Trying to lead us by example, but I spent a lot of time away from home with the work.
Yeah.
So the majority of your influences came from your mom. And I'm going to say at this point, that was good.
Well, you didn't work, Mom, you didn't work outside the house until I was back in school.
Right.
You went to work at Foley's.
Yes, in 84.
Yeah. Like once we'd gotten settled into elementary school and stuff. But then you went back to work. Both of my parents worked for the United States Postal Service. You went back to the post office in
90.
when I was in high school.
Yes.
And then for a period of time, both of my parents worked nights. You both worked when I was in high school. There was a period of time when you guys were gone from sundown to sun up.
Yeah.
Which you might think for a high school student is like prime time for excitement and
For getting in trouble.
getting in trouble. But no, I would just have maybe one or two friends over and we'd watch TV and go to bed at an appropriate time because I was not the partying kid either. So we're covering two books. We Love Our Mom, We Love Our Dad. And they're both books about the bear cubs appreciating their parents and showing them the ways they appreciate them. Mama Bear is more of a domestic bear. She stays at home. She does like a lot of domestic work. She takes care of the kids. And they show her their appreciation for her by building a scrapbook about basically them growing up. And then for Papa, they focus a lot on the fact that he works a lot. And so they give him Father's Day coupons to take over his work for a day, which ultimately results in him having to do the work, most of the work for them because they don't know how to do it. It's hard work they've chosen to do. I think it's like cleaning out his workshop, seeding the lawn, which I don't think I would know how to do. Did you have a thing like or was that a fertilizer that you pushed and it like spread?
Right.
That wasn't grass seed. That was fertilizer.
No, fertilizer.
No, that was fertilizer.
We don't do grass seed here. We do.
Okay.
We
Sod.
do sod.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Okay. I guess in bear country they do grass seed.
Yeah.
But I think growing up, I think my thoughts about you two was you both pretty much, except for like the heavy yard work, you guys both split duties pretty fair, like evenly.
Yeah.
Like as far as like Mom, you usually cooked, but like housework and things like that, it was expected that everybody chipped in, especially like vacuuming. I remember Dad was like very, very much about, you didn't just vacuum the den, you moved the furniture and vacuumed under the furniture.
Well, the furniture is made to be rearranged so you can change the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did that.
So I used to change the furniture around, yes.
A lot. Like I come home from school and like the living room would be rearranged. And for a child, that was like culture shock. It's like, well, now I have to sit in a different place to watch TV. We don't move our furniture around that much, just because it's heavy and we don't want to bother with it. But also we have wood. Well, you guys have hardwood floors. What is it?
Yeah.
Is it hardwood? Is that officially hardwood?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Growing up, we had shag carpeting.
Right.
You can drag a couch across shag carpeting and not worry about it.
Yeah. No, I just, we had some ugly shag carpet. I mean,
Well,
the colors were,
at our second house, we had regular carpet all over. We didn't have shag carpet. We had the shag at our first house.
The Oakwood Glen house.
oh,
No, that was our second house.
That wasn't shag. Oh, that was just deep carpet. That was carpet. Right. Okay. I think of that as shag. No, we had green carpeting originally.
right.
right.
That was appropriate for the 70s, I'd say.
Green and orange.
Green And the kitchen, the kitchen was green, orange, and yellow.
The kitchen was carpeted?
No, it had linoleum.
It's an ugly wallpaper.
And the walls, we had some wood paneling on the walls.
Yeah,
In the breakfast area.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole den was wood panel, wasn't it?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Did you hate it then?
Yeah.
Really? I thought everyone loved wood paneling in the 70s.
Well, we had wood paneling in the first house, and you weren't around to see some of those changes.
Yeah, because you were less than 2 years old when we moved from the first house.
Yeah.
And I changed it because, if you look at paneling, you got like a 4-inch, I don't know what you'd call it. There's just the imprint on the wood, maybe a 4-inch and a 6-inch and various sizes. I painted every other one white. And
How'd that work?
well, it looked good to me. It matched. It went well with the red carpet that we had in the den. So
Red carpeting,
Red shag carpet.
every other panel white.
yeah, it was awesome.
But it's pretty snappy, yeah.
Remodeled the interior of the house, took out a wall, and
Then put it back up.
put it back up because I didn't like it.
Now, growing up, the two of you grew up in the late 40s, 50s.
Correct.
What was your household parent situation like? Like who worked, who did what?
Well, my father worked, but my mother didn't. My father wouldn't let my mother work. And Ruben's dad worked. Well, his mom and dad both worked.
Yeah,
They had full-time jobs.
well, and Mom insisted on it because I and the eldest of my father's second family, and so he had to support his first family as well.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So there was what we call child support now. I don't know what they called it back then. But so Mom had to work, and Dad didn't like it because it was, I don't know, it wasn't a masculine thing to do. You were the head of the household, and you were expected to provide all of the financial support. However, he wasn't making enough to do that for two families. So Mom worked, and she had worked all her life anyway.
Yeah.
So she continued to work, almost until the last day,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, she had a good work ethic. I think that's one of the main things that she passed along to her kids, at least to one.
What did they do?
Well, Dad was during my coming into the family, and during the initial phase of the World War II, he worked at a ship channel. Although he'd grown around a farming community, cotton growing and whatnot, in South Central Texas, and but he worked at a ship channel. And I don't know exactly what he did, but from there, he started driving a truck until he was hurt, and then he had to change professions. And he started basically in the construction industry. And Dad and Mom were formally uneducated, but terrifically smart. I mean, they had the talent to learn things. Dad became a laborer, moved up to carpentry, moved up to superintendent, all within a short span of maybe 10 years, and without any formal education.
Yeah.
And he learned how to read blueprints, and then became, pretty well known in the construction industry. Mother worked for a bagging company. It was kind of funny because I remember when we were at Grandma's and whatnot, and the factory that she worked at, they used to patch bags that coffee beans came in.
Yeah.
It was, I forget what the material was for the bags, but
Okay.
they used to fix them, patch the holes, and Mom would get whatever beans were left in there, put them in her apron, bring them home, and then we would roast them at home in a wood-burning fire stove. And That's how the coffee was made, and so it was an interesting concept.
She re-sewed the bags,
Yeah.
with a commercial type sewing machine. That's what she did all day.
Yeah.
Sew bags.
Yeah, something that's not done anymore, but
Yeah.
it was hard work.
Yeah.
And it was, she called it piecework. She got paid per unit, and she was quite good at it, but it was very difficult. I mean, she started doing that, as I understand, when she was like 13. So, but anyway, both my parents worked, or our parents worked, and like I said, they passed along the work ethic, and maybe that's why I like working and I don't like retirement.
Yeah. What did your dad do?
He did all sorts of things. He was educated up through high school.
Yeah.
He graduated high school, but he had no college education or anything. He delivered ice when people had ice boxes where you had to have a big block of ice put in your refrigerator. And he did that for a while. He drove a city bus in downtown Houston for a while. He worked a drag line. He was a drag line operator, whatever that does, whatever a drag line does.
You just did a gesture, and I still
Like
don't know what
steam shovel type of thing, where you
A shovel that dips down in ditches and whatever.
pick up dirt, rocks, whatever, and
Yeah.
then moves them from one place to the other.
And he went to work for Harris County, where his father was working, and they did road work, patching holes in the street or whatever the county needed them to do,
Yeah.
taking care of the roads. And he did that till he died. So
Yeah. And so when you guys were, so Stacy came along before me, obviously, she's older than me. But when you were deciding to have a family and you were like, we're going to have kids, we're going to start that process going, what was your, when you talked about it, what was your idea of what kind of parents you wanted to be? Like, what did you want? Like, what kind of parents did you want?
we never really discussed that. That was just, you just did whatever,
Well, even today, there's no books written on how to be a parent.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of books written on how to be a parent, but
But you don't get this is how you do it.
yeah.
There's a lot of people that give you an opinion, but nothing that is, in my opinion, goes across the board and says, this is the book or this set of books. And we talked about it, and we were not successful in what we thought we weren't going to be able to have our own child. So we started looking around for what we referred to as our store-bought baby, and made application at different agencies to see that, and then we had to look at the price of adoption and all these other things that enter into it, the legal aspect and how the law governs adoptees, and it was kind of a scary process, and we decided that, we almost gave up in Catholic Charities, I
Catholic
think.
Charities.
When we were Protestant, or are Protestant in our faith, and we figured, Catholic Charities won't even hear us, but they were the nicest people in the world. They took in our application, did the investigation, whatnot, and told us that it would probably, since we were looking for
A newborn.
a newborn, and we were looking for hopefully one who had a split ethnicity between Hispanic and Caucasian, or what is referred to now as white. But anyway, so those were some rules that we've set out, or qualifications, that even made it more difficult. So they said, well, it'll be about 18 to 24 months before we probably can give you anything positive. So we decided we'd take a long vacation, and a couple of months later, was it?
They called us and said they had a baby for us if we wanted to come look at her and see if we wanted her,
It was just like
which I thought was odd.
the marketplace. They had this little baby inside this closet and looked like
No, she
it
was
was
in
a
a
small room.
small room.
And, you know, it is funny because that's where your parental instincts come in, because just all of a sudden, it was like love at first sight. Nothing was more beautiful than anything. And we fell in love with it just instantly. That we started the process right there. So Stacy was 25 days old.
Yeah.
And at the time, and when we left there, we left with a crying child and no diapers, nothing planned.
Wow.
We got a naked baby.
Yeah.
Not even the diapers she had on when we went and looked at her.
Wow.
No clothes, So I had to take.
Well, you called Peggy.
I called my friend Peggy to go with me to buy a baby carrier, clothes, diapers, whatever.
Because you assumed it would be a long time before you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had nothing.
And then the irony was that this was like,
We stopped after we picked her up and paid for her. We stopped at ABC Baby Furniture, and we bought the crib, the dresser.
I had a pickup truck, and basically told that lady, after you selected a design and furniture, whatever fits in that truck that the baby needs.
That's like we had to buy it.
Yes.
We had nothing.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
bought a few clothes and things like that.
crib and bassinet.
They didn't even give us a baby bottle with formula in it or anything.
yeah, talk about
The extra, I guess.
Yeah.
You bought the basic package.
They don't want you to have anything that you could trace back to the biological parents.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So just
Naked baby.
naked baby. There you go.
And we started from there, and this was like on a Wednesday or Thursday, and it was a terrific experience. Like by Saturday, we had a nursery
Yeah.
to put in, and the doorbell rang, and it was one of our friends from work, and she came in, or he came in, and Phyllis or one of
Phyllis McBride was the first to come.
first one to come in, and no sooner than she walked in, the doorbell rings again, and then again and again. Ultimately,
People we worked with, they had gotten together to do a baby shower.
Yeah.
impromptu, and,
Yeah.
just all of a sudden we had a house full of guests and a lot of presents, and so it was a terrifying, wonderful experience.
And then I came along, and it was a terrifying, terrifying experience.
No, you were the best baby I have ever seen. You didn't cry, except if you were wet or dirty or whatever. I mean, you were just a good baby. I could put you down to go take a nap, and you just went right to sleep.
Surprised. Because you were feeling sick or something.
I thought I had a virus or
Yeah.
the flu or something, and I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Hey, everything has worked out, well, and then we hit the 70s during the recession, and one of the things that started happening that was really scary was we had sugar and meat and everything became scarce.
Well, not scarce, just expensive.
So, very expensive and stuff like that. We were wondering, how are we going to manage this?
Right.
We were both working, and
No.
with Stacy,
Oh, with Stacy, yes.
we were both working with Stacy, and things were tough. But all of a sudden, we decided, we chose to become parents. We chose to raise a family, and we were having trouble with babysitting since we worked nights and this kind of thing.
Nobody wanted to keep your kid at night.
Yeah.
Get up at 2:00 in the morning to give her back to you, and
So we set a date that says we'll pay off whatever we can, and on this date it'll be the last day, one of us was going to have to quit.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, and your mom didn't like work anyway. So
Well,
she said,
I didn't mind working. I mean, it was just, it was hard for me to be a wife, a mother, an employee. I'm not, I don't, what do you call it?
Multitask.
Multitask. Yes, I do not
but she
multitask.
said at 8.
But I quit. I just finally quit.
I mean, that cut our salary right in half.
Well, more than in half, because I was making more than you at the time. Wow. I had been there longer.
But like I said, it just all worked out in the long run, and everything we did was an investment in time and lifestyle and whatnot. So
Yeah.
and as time went on, like I said, it was just a matter of dedicating your life to different things. One of them was being parents, the other was being an employee, and advancing in those fields. And here we are, retired.
Well, Papa Bear in We Love Our Dad makes it very clear that he is not comfortable sitting and just watching TV either.
Yeah,
He always wants to be up around doing something.
that's your dad.
Yeah, there's a lot of correlation between that, and during the time of raising children and working and investment in education and stuff, I was very civic minded. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I remember is going to your school and the teacher asking me, exactly what do you do? Because every time we talk about firefighters or ambulance drivers or post office people, Philip raises his hand and says, my dad does that.
Yes, my dad's a fireman.
I was the only kid who would say, my dad fights fires and he saves people's lives. He goes to the office, and I was actually telling the truth.
Yeah, you were.
He did all that.
And you volunteered to do it.
That was
Yes, it was like
Yeah,
volunteer work.
Yeah, that's one thing that always stuck out is this notion of giving back to the community, of like being a part of the community.
Yeah.
And how hard that can be sometimes, like to find where, even just to find out what you're good at and what you fit in doing, in a community. But I mean, I know from your work experience, you just sort of always had to put yourself out there and say, I'll learn the job, but put me to the test.
That was kind of like the great plan in terms of not having a formal education. I mean, I have some college, hours, and maybe if I put it all together, I'd get not even a sheepskin, but at least one out of paper. And but the thing of it is that everything that I did, even if for the community, was with the thought of advancing my own career, because the things that I did were applicable to the things that I did professionally. Trying to get into and doing, like my long-term job with the Postal Service was managing safety, health, and environmental issues, which fire and EMS and, all of that. And people that worked for me were the medical doctor and nurses, people that were with the drug and alcohol, and just, of course, all the safety engineering and everything associated. These people were my support staff, and things that I did on the outside, in one form or fashion, helped me understand, my own job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that worked out well.
Yeah. And, so I talk about on my show, and I talked about in my one-man show. In the later books, Mike Berenstain talks about, he's written several books just about the concepts of caring, and what it means to care for someone. And so I did some reading about the science of caring, which is actually like a thing that came out in the 70s for nursing. It was a sort of a philosophy of nursing that is still taught to this day. But it really took it to heart, and I talk about it on my show, and I've talked about it on certain episodes. But it really struck me because it resonated with me as to how you two approached parenting me and Stacy. And because one of the philosophies is that when you care about someone, when you love someone and care about them and want them to, like, if in nursing, it's want them to get better, but in life, it's just want them to thrive. You give them the space they need to grow into who they're going to be. And you're there and you care for them and you correct them when they need correction and you take care of them when they need care. But you always you always allow them to sort of grow in the direction they need to go. And that's something that you guys did that I have taken to heart with my own children and it's something that Mike and Stan and Jan Berenstain really cared about in their writing, which is letting people be who they need to be, just to make sure that they're not doing anything, destructive or hurtful to anyone. Because I feel like even though you guys didn't always seem to understand where I was coming from, and I was doing things that didn't always make a whole lot of sense, you always were just like supportive, like you not just supportive, but like allowed me to make those mistakes or allowed me to go in the directions I wanted to go, and just sort of guiding me along the way, when I seemed to be getting off track or going, like failing classes or running away to Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Everyone on my phone is like running away to Austin, Texas. Look, okay, once I ran away from home to go to Austin, Texas, I was out of my mind. It was a very educational experience. The police picked me up. I had a very nice talk with the police therapist. It was a very, very rounding experience. When I didn't do much, when I did something, I did it big.
Well, the thing about that particular issue, the fact that was even disappointing, was that you chose to do that without thinking tomorrow, like, where am I going to get the money to eat? Where am I going to get the money to put gas in my car?
Well, I wasn't thinking.
Exactly.
I got in my car and I drove.
Exactly. And that was one of the things that I can't believe that he would do such a dumb thing, and then I had to find someone to go with me and your mother to.
Who was it that went with you? It was
Brad England.
That's right. I ran into him later at an event or something.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, I remember having to drive up to Austin, Texas again. I was like,
To bring you home. He drove your car back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, that was all tied up in the mess that was my theater life.
Yeah.
Like, that was more me being terrified of something else. But that's another thing that it took me a long time to realize is, as a kid, I saw you both as trying to like control my life, telling me what to do and wanting to get it. As a parent, then I look back on it and I see just how much you were both trying to protect me and keep me safe. And as a kid, you don't want that. You want to you want to go out and do whatever you want to do. And as a parent, you want to you see the danger signs. And you want your child to be happy, but you also want your child to be safe. And so I just wanted to say right now, I appreciate, in retrospect, how difficult that must have been for both of you. Like, especially when I was in high school and going through all that mess. Because it's like, here's this kid who's passionate about this thing, but also there's like danger signs and warning signs like all over the place that he's in a messy situation. And it was a messy situation.
And then bear in mind that I had a very disciplined, not only upbringing, but the fact that one of my favorite activities was military.
Right.
So there was organization, there was responsibility, there was accountability, so those kind of things you kind of expect in real life once you get away from them, that they stay with you even to this day, and so I had the privilege of supporting my country and teaching me how to support my family.
And make a bed very well. You can make a bed. My dad can make a bed like you could bounce a quarter off of it.
When you're supposed to.
Oh, you're supposed to.
And I grew up not knowing that you were even supposed to make your bed every day.
Well, there's some philosophies that say if you make the bed, you're trapping a lot of stuff in there. So
Oh,
let it
okay.
air. That's my philosophy.
That's an excuse.
Sounds like a good philosophy to me.
But no, I mean, what I really wanted to do with this episode, the books that we talked, the books that I read out loud to my parents for the first time in a long time. We love our mom and we love our dad, and they're very basic books. They're there just for kids to be like, here's some ideas for what you can do for your parents for Mother's and Father's Day. But I really just wanted to have you two on the show to talk about parenting, to talk about me. To have you on the just to have you on the show for these two books, just because I love you both very much,
Well, thank you.
and I feel like I don't say it enough, or I don't get to show it. And this is what I do, and so I would be remiss of me to not to have you here on Deep in Bear Country.
Well, I tell you what, we appreciate the opportunity of being part of your life in this aspect. And sometimes over the years, it's been difficult to understand which way you're headed.
Trust me, I feel the same way about myself.
But, the fact that you're so far away sometimes drives me to feel like I've been a failure because I admire grandparents that can take an active part in their grandchildren and stay close with their children.
Yeah.
And in my situation or our situation, everybody's split.
Yeah.
And even you having a half brother and his family are in Colorado, and you guys are in Minnesota, and the closest one is Stacy, who is just still 250 miles away,
Right,
around Fort Worth. So when I hear other grandparents talk about what they're doing for the weekend, Rick and Mary Beth, he's got 10 grandkids. So that's 10 birthday parties in a year that he's got to go. And I'm not going to admire that situation. Sometimes I wish I was part of it.
Yeah.
So.
But you can also say, I would say that there's a certain pride to be taken in the fact that your kids felt confident enough to move somewhere else, to be like, I feel ready to get out there into the world. And
and that's one of the pluses.
And all this time, I thought you just wanted to get away from us. That too, huh?
No, and that's very true, because I've always been philosophically believe that you go where the opportunities lie. And while the reason that I'm here in this community is because your mother didn't want to leave anyway. Probably had one of the things that I wanted to do was stay in the military.
right.
The other part of it was, move away from this heat, and having experienced part of the world, I saw some beautiful places that I thought I wanted to live, those kind of things. But you make decisions with other people's opinions and other people's lives, how they're going to be impacted.
Yeah.
So you make an adjustment.
Also, if you guys had moved to Europe, I probably would never have been born.
If we had moved what?
To Europe, I probably never would have been born.
Oh,
Yeah, you never know. We were going to go to, where were we?
Spain.
We were going to go to Spain, and then you came along and we had to cancel that.
I could have been a little Spanish boy.
There you go.
I would have definitely been Felipe.
Yeah, there you go.
Ridden that horse. And
We planned a trip to. We were planning a trip to Spain when we got Stacy,
That's true.
and then we planned a trip to. Was it Jerusalem? Wow. Yeah, with my aunt Jonelle and her church group. We were going to go there when I found out I was pregnant, and they were going to go in July, and you were due in July. So
I could have been
missed that trip.
I could have been a citizen of Jerusalem, I guess.
Well, and now years later, we find out that there are actually ties, between the Jewish community and our lives and,
Yeah.
all of this stuff, and you start looking into your own life. And so it's been an interesting hopscotch.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for joining me here on my show.
Well, I wish I could have contributed more, but
You contributed great.
I'm not much on speech giving.
Well, just remember that no matter what, you are loved, and there's nothing more than that we appreciate is to you having come along and been part of our life all this time.
Same here. Thanks for still being a part of my life.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And for everyone else who's a part of my life, you can join me every week here in Bear Country. You can also join me on the podcast I do with my child, Willow. It's Del Toro Time, a Guillermo del Toro adjacent podcast. We are gearing back up to start new episodes. And Pizza Toast, the podcast I do with Christy, we will be getting back on track to put out a new season of that show as well. So keep your ear to the ground. If you're having trouble finding Deep in Bear Country on Facebook, it's because terrible things happen to my Facebook. I no longer have control over any of my accounts. So I'm going working to rebuild my social media presence. So hang in there. You'll see me sometime. I don't know how I'm going to figure out Facebook without access to those pages, but I'll do it. Otherwise, once again, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And I will see everybody else next time deep in Bear Country.